There are two main schools in Buddhism. The one stressing personal liberation is called Theravada, or more popularly Hinayana, the lesser vehicle. And the one stressing universal liberation is called Mahayana, the greater vehicle. During the 3rd century BC, with the expanding power of the Indian king Ashoka, Buddhism burst out of the Ganges Valley and spread in all directions. In the northwest, it took root in Gandhara and Kashmir. From there, by the beginning of the Christian era, it was moving through Central Asian international highways to China. The Chinese dynasty then was Han, a power in the east that matched Rome in the west. Han influence dominated East Asia from Korea to Chinese Turkestan, from the Gobi Desert to Vietnam. The national creed was Confucianism, a benevolent ruler under the mandate of heaven whose will coincides with that of the people. An orderly society with a rigid family structure, a moral code based on humanity and the practice of perfect virtue for its own sake. The cosmic view was Taoism. Tao, or the way of nature, governs all life, manifesting itself in yin and yang, the negative and positive forces that shape all things. A philosophy of passivity, with avoidance of worldly strife and of a return to purity for the attainment of eternal life. Into this self-contained and smug world came trickles of a foreign idea. The White Horse Temple, reputedly the first Chinese Buddhist monastery, was founded on the legend that Buddha appeared as a golden deity in the dream of Emperor Ming. The earliest historical mention of a Chinese Buddhist community occurred in 65 AD. By the middle of the 2nd century, Buddha was worshipped in the palace along with Taoist deities. But not until the period after the collapse of the Han Empire did Buddhism gain real momentum in China. In the north, under the invading Turkic and Tibetan tribes, incessant warfare, chaos, and misery provided a climate ripe for a religion affording physical and spiritual refuge to the masses. By entering monkhood, common people escaped military and labor services as well as taxation. Non-Chinese rulers, unshackled by Confucian and Taoist traditions, embraced this non-Chinese faith to ensure their victory and prosperity. They listened to advice from monks who exercised a restraining influence over wanton killing through the preaching of compassion, thus endearing themselves to the downtrodden Chinese. In the south, where the Chinese court found haven, uncertainty and frustration favored the growth of metaphysical speculation. Neo-Taoists considered inactivity as virtue and non-being as the origin of all things. The sage must identify himself with non-being, which is oblivious of self and others, life and death, right and wrong. This seemed to mirror the basic Buddhist ideal of emptiness. Thus, a sympathetic dialogue developed between the learned monks and the literati, whose influence enabled Buddhism to gain converts among royalty and the rich. In the chaos of 4th century China, the philosophical foundation of Chinese Buddhism was laid by a few eminent monks such as Dao An, who merged two main currents of Buddhist thought, the practice of meditation and the doctrine of emptiness. His disciple, Hui Yuan, likened the indestructibility of the spirit to the endless transmission of fire from wood to wood, and argued at court that monks be exempt from bowing to the emperor. Another eminent monk, Dao Sheng, propagated the fundamental Mahayana tenet that all sentient beings possess the Buddha nature and are capable of becoming Buddha. He pioneered in the belief of sudden and complete enlightenment after a long process of religious training. and Buddhism began to change the Chinese landscape. The strategic point for transmitting Buddhism into China was Dunhuang, where the northern and southern overland routes met. As early as the middle of the 4th century, cave temples were carved out of the hills to serve traveling monks and native believers. Eventually, this became a center of devotion for the next 1,000 years, and a depository of Buddhist art to this day. Based upon the adage that different paths lead to the same goal, the Chinese tendency to synthesize and harmonize has succeeded in merging Buddhism with Confucianism and Taoism. In the process, Buddhism has relaxed the rigidity of Confucian ethics and checked the abandon of the Taoist surrender to nature. It has extended the Chinese compassion for humanity to all living things. It has expanded the Chinese mind by introducing the view of the universe as a time-space continuum without beginning or end, by interpreting creation as reciprocal causes and effects, by presenting all phenomena as a projection of the mind, and by identifying eternity, infinity, and perfect wisdom with emptiness, a state beyond words and imagination. The all-inclusiveness of its doctrine eliminates the duality of self and others, real and unreal, being and non-being. As mountains, deserts, and oceans cease to act as barriers in the transmission of ideas, the whole span of human drama, from the travels of Central Asian monks on ancient silk routes to the maturity of Chinese Buddhism, has become perhaps merely a chapter in the development of world Buddhism, which, enriched by all other faiths, will meet the challenge of present-day needs and contribute to true peace in the mind of man.